Liftoff will start in T-minus 10 seconds.
Hey everybody, this is Evan and John, and you're listening to The Boomer and X Show.
Godspeed, John Glenn.
Roger, 0G, and I feel fine. Capsule is turning around.
All right, welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us again here on the Boomer and X Show. What you just heard were two very brief clips from Mission Control talking to John Glenn talking to Mission Control. That was 53 years ago today, February 20th, 1962, when America sent their first man into orbit.
Yep.
Again, 1962, we were in a heated space race with the Soviet Union, and at this point they were ahead of us because they had put a man in orbit in 1961, and we finally got John Glenn up there aboard the Friendship 7 was the name of his spacecraft.
And I will always remember that because I remember when I learned that in school, it just stuck in my mind because I grew up on Friendship Road.
Okay.
Yeah. So I always remembered it. I didn't know Friendship 7. I just remembered Friendship something.
Yeah. He orbited the Earth 3 times. How long would you just take a wild guess that would take?
I'd say 3 days.
3 days. The whole thing lasted less than 5 hours.
What?
Yes.
How?
When you get up there, you're traveling.
I guess so.
Fast,
you're so high up that it.
Well, you're out of the atmosphere certainly. So he orbited the Earth 3 times in less than 5 hours, and then splashed down. And of course, this predates the shuttle by a long way. So there wasn't a reuse and a landing on land. There was all of these vessels, the Mercury and the Apollo, were one use and then splashed down in the ocean for recovery. Just for the sake of comparison. 35 years later, when Charles Lindbergh became the first man to fly across the Atlantic Ocean, 33 hours for his flight. So 33 hours to cross the Atlantic Ocean, 35 years later, 5 hours to orbit the entire Earth 3 times. So
wow.
Just
and you got to know the technology 33 years later was 35 years later.
35 years later made leaps and bounds, and of course now we're 53 years beyond that, and obviously a whole lot has happened since then. In fact, someday I want to do an episode on space exploration and all this stuff, because now we're doing a lot of stuff with unmanned, and we're learning so much. But anyway, let's get to last weekend was Valentine's Day. It was also your wife's birthday.
We saw 50 Shades of Grey. And actually I've seen a lot of pretty bad reviews, and I like chick flicks, so I guess this is kind of a chick flick. Definitely wasn't. I guess it falls under that category.
Well, what was the makeup of the audience? I mean, you were
all women.
Okay.
And now, see, we went on Valentine's Day night, so it was a lot of guys being dragged along.
Okay.
But I saw on opening weekend, it was pretty much mostly women, and that's the biggest part of that. All the readers, the people who read the book, the series, those were predominantly women.
Well, I didn't go see it, and I don't think I will. But it wasn't that bad. Is that what you're saying?
And I'm not a very harsh movie critic. Now, the chick in it bit her lip about 100 times, and that was it got annoying. Okay. The sexy lip bite that you see?
Oh, okay.
She did it way too many times. And that was annoying. They kind of been talking about how it's romanticizing domestic violence, and I didn't really see it that way. It was just, the guy's a dominatrix, so
I see.
It's not necessarily domestic violence. That's just kind of what he does and the character he was playing.
Right.
So, anyways, it was It was okay. I wouldn't give it a 1 like I've seen a lot of people do.
Right,
I'd give it a 3.
3 out of
5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hadn't read the book. I haven't read the reviews. I haven't read previews. I haven't, so I didn't know anything about it. So
I will also say this: it probably got a lot of bad reviews because about 25 minutes had naked people on it in the entire movie. It was very much pornographic. A quarter of the movie was a naked person. So that it got some bad reviews because of that. But
okay.
But my opinion is, if you don't want to see that stuff, don't watch it.
I don't know why you would go to see this movie if that was something that was going to give you a problem.
Yeah.
But
speaking of movies, though, we have a real good buddy of mine who actually does his own movie review website, and we're going to have him on.
Yeah, actually, we're about to get into that. We're going to grab him on the phone here real quick and get into some great movie talk.
All right, so we're going to take a break, and I'm going to get him on the phone.
That's not good. Y'all are already laughing at me.
No, I said this is going to be more confrontational instead of like an interview.
And I looked at him like, what do you mean? He said, no, conversational. And I said, oh, okay, that's better. Are we recording?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Well, do you want to kind of introduce him and set that? And
let's do that.
Get started.
All right, so we have Patrick Neff with us. He's the Real Man from the Real Man Reviews, and he's also part of the Creepercast podcast. And thanks for joining us, Patrick.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
This is a friend of mine that I've had since I was in 6th grade, band director, when I was in 6th grade up until, I guess you left when I was a sophomore?
Yes, at the end of your sophomore year.
All right, so the main reason we're having you on is because of your Real Man Reviews, and just with the Oscars episode, we needed some extra firepower for talking about all these movies without spoilers. And
Patrick, let me ask you a question real quick. Could you just, for our listeners, real briefly, tell us a little bit about Real Man Reviews and the Creepercast podcast? Okay. Well, first, Creepercast is a horror site. We review movies, books, anything that has to do with that genre, but it sticks primarily to that genre. Real Man Reviews is my website, and I actually am going to be doing some podcasts on it starting hopefully this month, actually. It is, to me, the whole idea came to me because I was listening to a podcast that I really like. It's a movie review podcast. And the guys have kind of gotten lost from the idea that movies are still supposed to be entertainment. And I'm an entertainment person. I'm not about the movie making aspects of it. I'm all about, when I sat down and paid my $8, did I enjoy it $8 worth? Right. And so I decided that it's a real review by a real person in the real world for other real people in the real world. Gotcha. Are you going to enjoy it if you go sit down and watch it? And I'm here to tell you why you will or won't. And I try, like y'all do, my website, after the first one I did, which was Man of Steel, I have decided to always be spoiler-free too. So I try to keep everything I do spoiler-free.
How exactly do you do that?
Well, I don't really know. I've been listening to enough of these things and reading enough reviews over the past 2 years, 3 years that I talk about the movie and what is cool about it and what is not cool about it, and I try not to give any plot things away at all. Being old hands at this ourselves a few weeks ago when we first decided that we wanted to we wanted to, for our purposes, kind of focus on the Oscar movie, so we went out and saw 2 or 3 movies that were currently nominated for Best Picture, and we kind of found ourselves struggling to say enough about the movie to get some information about it, but then not spoil anything.
And
so that was
hard.
That was one of the things Evan said. Well, and my friend's been doing this for a while. Let's find out how he does it.
Well, the easiest thing to do is you give details about, like, the scene where this happened, I really enjoyed that, but don't tell what happened in the scene.
Okay.
That's exactly what we do. So when this guy died,
well, now, I try not to even do that much. I'm like, the people, it's really funny because when we did a lot of podcasts for a while with CreeperCast, and some of them were independent. We did an independent feature every month. And some of those were given to us by the people that had made them. So they were by rookie movie makers.
Yeah.
And so we would focus on some of the things that we liked, trying to stay positive when some of it was not. And I don't know, it is hard sometimes not to give away, but I try to always avoid plot things. Like if somebody's going to die, I don't say anything about, if it's a horror movie, it's easy, because you say, well, there was this one guy that dies, because there's going to be lots of deaths, and you say, well, I thought that death scene was awesome. And you can talk about what happened in the death scene without saying who died.
Yeah.
Right.
So you actually had a movie made in your home. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah, that was pretty cool. I was renting a house where I live in Louisiana, and they were making an independent direct-to-DVD Christian movie, and it starred Candace Cameron. She is Kirk Cameron's sister, but she was the older sister in Full House.
Okay.
And I lived at the time, I was renting this house that was a 2-story, pretty monstrous-sized house. It was only 2 bedrooms, but it was the size of a 4 or 5 bedroom house because the living room, dining room, and den were all connected, and they were massive. So they were able to set up 3 different rooms in that great room, basically, and it was a really neat experience because it was raining outside, it was cold, it was wet, it was gross, but they put lights outside the windows, and I swear to you, it looks like July. Inside the house, I turned the corner, walked back into the living room after they'd set everything up, and I was like, good Lord, did the sun come out? And I look outside. No, it didn't. The lights did. But they let me sit in the director's chair, and we got to watch the scenes be made, and there were 2 different scenes filmed in the house. The movie is called Finding Normal. It's actually on Netflix now.
Yeah.
It's really cool because, my furniture is in the house. You can see, I'm like, hey, that's my dining table, which to me is pretty cool. But the other thing because I'm a dork, I love movies, I love things that are funny. And there's a scene where they're driving around the neighborhood, and they're supposed to be driving from one town to the next through this neighborhood, but you could tell that they were just doing circles for me because I live there. But they drove by my house, and you could see my Camaro sitting in the yard. It's like, there's my car! That was a lot of fun.
And where was this took place? Where were you living?
Columbia, Louisiana. It's a small town south of Monroe, and the producer was originally from Monroe, so she wanted to pick a small town near home, and she picked us.
Since you're kind of a movie buff, you may remember this. Before they actually started shooting a lot of movies in Louisiana within the past, say, 10 or 12 years, there was a producer that lived in Shreveport, made a handful of movies. His name was Charles B. Pierce. Did you ever see the movie or hear the movie The Town That Dreaded Sundown, about a series of murders that took place in Texarkana?
I love that movie, the original. I'm assuming you're talking about the original.
Yes, that was one of the movies that was made by Charles B. Pierce.
Awesome. I love that movie. In fact, I just watched the remake the other day.
Yeah, it was good. So another little bit of movie trivia. Of course, over the past 10 years or so, they've made quite a few movies in Louisiana, maybe 10 or 15 years. But he was kind of doing it before it kind of became the thing to do. Patrick, I wanted to ask you about some of the movies you've seen recently, and give us your opinion on them.
Well, the movies, I actually took my daughter to Valentine's Day date, and we saw Jupiter Ascending. and SpongeBob, the movie. Jupiter Ascending was an interesting movie. It's by the Wachowski brothers, which is, I believe, the people that made the Matrix trilogy. I was very scared of this movie, but I had high hopes. I don't know why, mainly because the commercials just looked really good, but I was scared of it because it was put on, it was suspended. They held it back for 6 months so they could finish up post-production. And whenever a movie is delayed, that's a scare sign to me. And the biggest high-profile one I can think of off the top of my head was the Green Lantern was held back twice. And you see how wonderful of a movie that was when it came out. So anytime that they do that, because it was only like 2 or 3 weeks from release when they bumped it back.
Wow.
So, yeah, I was real shocked.
Have you seen any of the movies that are currently nominated for Best Picture that the awards will come out on Sunday night?
Yes, actually, I've watched 2 of them. When y'all invited me to do this, I made sure that I got time to at least see 2 of them.
Good. What did you see?
I saw American Sniper and Birdman.
Okay. And let's take American Sniper first. I know Evan and I went. That was this group of 8. That's the first one that we saw. And what did you think of it?
Well, the first thing, I'm from Texas, so I thought that Bradley Cooper is the main guy, isn't it?
Yes.
I thought that he was so perfect in his sounding. He sounded like people that I went to school with and grew up with. He sounded Texan. He sounded so Texan it was almost annoying because I know he's not, and I know that I was listening to him. I'm like, that's the guy from The Hangover. That's not what he sounds like, but he did a great job, and he looked the part. And my gosh, when they showed a picture of that guy at the end of the movie, could they have gotten any closer to the way that man looked with this actor? That blew me away, first off. The movie is directed by Clint Eastwood, so you know you're going to get a good story. You know it's going to be told well, and I think they did. The thing about that movie is I was rooting for the character. He kind of aggravated me in the middle, obviously. I'm a family guy, my daughter and stuff, and he was not at first, but it clicked with him, and he gets back in, but he gets on board with that whole idea. I think probably the worst part of that whole movie to me was the ending.
Which we won't give away.
Of course not. But I mean, if you hear the tale, I mean, if you've seen anything about the reality, I hadn't. I went into that movie not really having read anything about that guy before.
Yeah.
But I thought the story was excellent, and I thought it was done very well. Is it a movie I'll ever go back to? No, I'll never watch that movie again. But it's a hard movie to watch. But it makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I'll give my thoughts on it in a minute, but I will just say it's one of those rare movies that is a true legitimate Best Picture contender, and at the same time being an absolutely monster box office hit. I mean, as of February 8th, it had already generated over $360 million in sales. So it's certainly a huge movie. Not only, it's a huge movie with the public, but also I think it's gotten a lot of critical acclaim. And then a lot of times you have one or the other, you don't have both.
I know, and I'm curious as to y'all's opinion as to why you think that is. Why is this movie getting such hype? Because, I went to the movies, and there's people in line to see this movie 2 or 3 weeks after it had come out. And there were lines to get into the theater. And I was just amazed that it was that popular.
I don't know that I can offer up the reason, but I can certainly add to something you just said. And this was something that I mentioned to Evan when we first saw it. First of all, most of my movies that I see on Encore or HBO or something like that. I'm not a big theater guy, and I almost never go see a movie on opening weekend. I was chomping at the bit to see this movie, and we went to see it on opening weekend. And first of all, the trailers are some of the best trailers I have ever seen in my life for setting tension. And I guess the fact that the story was a true story was a part of the draw for me, because if I go see a movies like Charlie Wilson's War, Argo, I typically go see movies about things that really happened. I couldn't wait to see this movie. I was just drawn to it, and I think that the trailers were just that effective.
The trailers were effective, I'll admit. You're talking about the one where he's on the phone with his wife while he's in the middle of a firefight?
Yes, that, and also the one where you see that there is the woman and the boy come out, and they go away from that. And by the way they handled that in the movie, I just thought was perfect, because you see that, but it is not that circumstance. The first time you see it in the movie is not brought to its end. They come back to that, and I thought, man, what a way to maintain the suspense. I was just, since we're on this movie right now, I'll go ahead and say, the best director, Eastwood. I think he deserved it for this movie. I really do.
Oh, I think you did a great job with it.
You also said you saw Birdman. Now, I saw this too. Evan didn't. What do you think about Birdman?
I'm not going to lie to you. Here's where the real man comes out and the movie critic goes away, because I was so bored during this movie.
Really?
Oh, my gosh. I am not into that type of indie. Edward Norton and Michael Keaton did a great job, but Edward Norton wasn't acting. He was just playing himself, because everything I've read about that man, that's the way he acts on movie sets. That's why when sequels get made of his movies, he's not in them.
Were you referring to Michael Keaton?
No, I was referring to Edward Norton.
Okay.
Like when he did the Hulk, he does lots of things when he is as an actor. He does lots of line changes and pressures people into changing things with the scripts, and that's why he wasn't back to do the Avengers as the Hulk, because they didn't want to deal with him anymore. And that first scene when he comes into the movie and he's on stage with Michael Keaton, and he's like, well, why don't you take those lines out and say this line better and do that and do this? And he kept changing things. That's the way he is in real life from what I've read.
Well, I thought he did a fine job, but maybe it's easy to play yourself.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I was laughing the whole time at that. I enjoyed that. I don't know. I kept waiting for something to happen. And the ending, people rave about the ending, but I was so not into what was going on by that point. I was like, nah.
I thought it was an okay movie. I didn't think it was great, but I thought it was enjoyable. It's not something that I would go pay to see again. With me personally, with American Sniper, I'd actually lay $9.50 down again for it. I really would, and still may. And I don't know if I've ever seen a movie in a theater twice, the same movie. But Patrick, so another one that we went to see, and now I know that we're moving into pictures you haven't seen, but I want to bring it up anyway because there's some controversy. We went to see Selma, and I thought it was an excellent movie. I thought David Oyelowo did a great job. I think he should have been nominated for Best Actor. He wasn't.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. However, when we went to see it, and I'm 53 years old, and so I was alive when this was going on, but I certainly don't have direct memory of it. But in my reading and understanding of how the Civil Rights Movement and the Voting Rights Act all came about, President Johnson was certainly a player. He certainly wasn't an antagonist toward the process. However, in this movie, he was portrayed as being somewhat antagonistic toward, and certainly not working hand in hand with Martin Luther King Jr. or anybody else. And in fact, it was, he finally ends up saying in the movie, and I'm going to go ahead and say this, that he was kind of brought around because he didn't want to be remembered in the same breath with Governor George Wallace of Alabama. And I'm like, when we talked about this movie a few weeks ago on our show, I'm like, I didn't know. Well, I've done some reading since then, and guess what? There's a reason I didn't know. That's not the way it was.
Right.
You're doing them, and look, I understand that you take certain artistic liberties when you're making a movie. You may compress some things down for the sake of drama and suspense and interest, but when you're talking about something that's supposed to be historical, I just think you do the story an injustice when you alter the basic standpoint of a player, of a significant player in it.
Well, I've always believed, or I've more recently believed, artistic liberties are going to be taken by Hollywood. They always have, they always will. That's why I didn't get all upset when I watched Noah, because I knew there were going to be Hollywood liberties with that story. However, when you do something that is recent history, I agree with you completely. And when I say recent history, I mean there are people alive that remember this.
Certainly, absolutely.
You need to stick to the script of life, or things that are set, and this is kind of going off the story a little bit, but I mean, when I'm watching a movie that is set in the 1940s, set it in the 1940s and give me technology that they had in the 1940s, or at least explain futuristic technology in the 1940s in a way that it is believable. Don't just say, well, we're going to have this because we need to further the story. You set it in the 40s, or you set it in this historic perspective, you got to work around reality first, and you've got to tell the story using the history facts.
Right. So, for instance, in the Imitation Game, you wouldn't have wanted to see somebody walking around talking on a cell phone.
Right. I mean, and it actually makes, sometimes going back and watching older movies, it makes it harder sometimes for younger people to grasp the idea of no cell phones. And I love horror movies. The current trope right now is always the cell phone doesn't get any signal or the battery is dead. They're just, okay, let's throw out the cell phone in the first 5 seconds of the movie. Oh, we have no signal.
One of my and we're kind of going to, but the original Wall Street with Michael Douglas and Charlie Sheen. One of my favorite things that I think the movie holds up well. But when you see Michael Douglas one morning walking along the beach with a phone the size of his head.
It was like, dude, that's a walkie-talkie from 1945. What is that?
and his whole thing about he was on the cutting edge of everything because he had so much money. And I just still find that scene hilarious.
Johnson, he's a bad guy basically in this movie?
Yeah, he is. He was again portrayed as being certainly not sympathetic toward the situation. He didn't do anything to help bring it about. And at one point, he's sitting there talking to Governor George Wallace, who, by the way, looks nothing like Governor George Wallace, and Lyndon Johnson looked nothing like Lyndon Johnson. J. Edgar Hoover looked nothing like J. Edgar Hoover, and that's a conversation for a different time. He certainly did nothing to help from the White House, and almost in some ways kind of stood in the way. That's the way it's portrayed. I've done a lot of reading since because that really threw me, and there's been a lot of criticism of this movie for that portrayal. Other than that,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Was an excellent movie and very well done. Other than that, but to me, that's kind of a thing.
That is a thing. Tim Roth was playing Governor Wallace. Oh my gosh.
I know. And see, Evan, he didn't know any of these people, but I'm like, none of them looked anything but, Martin Luther King Jr.'s character
looked like a clone of Martin.
Coretta Scott King. I even knew the part Andrew Young. I mean, there was a young on there, and they referred to him as Andrew without saying who he was until at the very end.
Yeah.
Then they identified him and showed some things that they went on to do after that period of time. But they all looked good. But the other folks that we talked about didn't look anything.
That aggravates me. That insults me a little bit because Tim Roth isn't even American. If you're going to pick somebody to play an American president, could you find somebody that's American? Now, the guy that played Malcolm X, it looks like he looked great.
Yeah, he did.
But Tom Wilkinson doesn't look like Johnson much.
He didn't.
That's a little aggravating. Now, back to Johnson himself. Johnson did things even as a school teacher in the 30s to help civil rights. The guy you know, a lot of people say he did all of his civil rights stuff to get the minority vote. Maybe. But he never stood in opposition to civil rights.
Yeah.
He was forced at times in Congress to vote with his fellow Southern Democrats.
Yeah.
But no, he...
Well, certainly in this movie, and again, I enjoyed it. I thought it was well done. I thought it told a story that needed to be told, certainly. But I've got a problem with this particular aspect of it. I really do. Let's kind of move on a little bit. And I know you haven't seen The Theory of Everything. I'll tell you this. I thought Bradley Cooper had Best Actor sewn up until I saw Eddie Redmayne's portrayal of Stephen Hawking in The Theory of Everything. And let me tell you this. The difficulty of acting like someone that is going through the different stages of ALS, and to me, he pulled it off exquisitely. I thought his performance, while hard to watch because it's not a pleasant thing at all, I thought his performance was, to me, it was Oscar-worthy.
Well, I don't have anything to argue about with that because one of the biggest reasons why I haven't gone to see this movie, other than being cheap when it comes to things that aren't visceral, I don't like to go see movies in the movie theater that aren't needing or aren't worthy of the big screen and big sound system. Does that make sense? So if it's a drama like this, I'll watch it at home and I'll enjoy it, but I'm not going to spend $12 for me and somebody to go see it on a screen. This movie looks like it's going to be hard to watch. I have obviously I have a respect for Stephen Hawking, and to see him deteriorate over time, that to me sounds like it's going to be something very hard to watch.
I was also a little disappointed that the reason he is of such scientific significance isn't to me in the movie it's not given its due.
Really?
Yeah, it does hit it some, but it was more about his personal life, his struggles with his illness, his interaction with his wife, and it's all very interesting, obviously. But I would have liked to seen a little bit of his hardcore. What makes him so important? Why are we paying attention to this guy? Why have we been paying attention to him for decades? Other than his illness, and it was there, but I felt like it was underserved a bit.
Oh, that sounds like a weakness of the movie.
In my opinion, it was. Boyhood, just real quick. Evan and I saw this. We got it on Redbox, and here's the problem. We watched it right after we watched American Sniper.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, we kind of gave it a bad, not necessarily a bad review. It was just we were directly, comparing it to American Sniper, and we watched it about 2 in the morning.
Right, and it's a long movie.
It's a long movie. So we just, I don't know, we didn't watch it with we were comparing it too much to American Sniper, which we just thought we both saw the top contender for an Oscar.
Isn't Boyhood the movie that takes place over 12 years?
Yes, that is the one. And
okay.
When I heard that it was filmed over a span of 12 years, I thought this is some sort of real-life documentary. It's not. It's just a movie with
all the characters
with all the age. The characters just aged 12 years. Yeah. And above and beyond that, I didn't find it extraordinary.
The only thing I liked about it it's kind of neat knowing that they did it in 12 years was all the things that were popular in these ages, like certain songs and certain fads and stuff like that. That was pretty cool to see all the people in the movie doing, which in the time was actually popular, and so it's pretty neat seeing that in the movie portrayed.
That's pretty cool. The thing that I've heard about it was that what's neat is that they all agreed that they would come back, but had, Ethan Hawke decided he wanted more money the last time they got together, he could have demanded it and held out, and they had to get a new actor for, that part. And that could have totally destroyed the movie. But I think that it's one of those things that's great on paper and it's ambitious and it's neat that they did. The subject matter just doesn't sound very interesting.
And I didn't find it extraordinary. Again, it wasn't bad, but I didn't find it overly fascinating either.
Right. To me, it's all about I want to make a movie that's got a shtick. Like they made that horror movie that is all one shoot, straight through. And there was that movie that was supposed to take place in 90 minutes, and you could start the clock at the beginning of the movie at 90 minutes and count down with the movie, and it was all in real time. They didn't jump cut to anything or speed up or slow down time. There's always those movies that are gimmick movies. To me, this was a gimmick movie. It was all about the idea that we got these actors and actresses back over a 12-year period, but the story they're telling is just kind of meh. It certainly doesn't sound like something I would want to spend anything more than a $Redbox on.
Okay. Something that it reminded me a lot of was the movie Buried with Ryan Reynolds, and it was because of that stick that it had. That's the only thing that made that movie interesting. Have you seen that movie?
I don't think I saw
the
that.
whole movie in a coffin, and it never leaves the coffin.
Oh, yeah.
Movie, he's in that coffin.
Wow.
And
I won't see it.
Oh, no.
I won't see
It's
it.
great. And it's good.
No, because I have a claustrophobic thing. I won't see that.
And so if you haven't seen the movie, I would say watch it because I think it was nominated, but it didn't win. Mostly because it had this new great thing that no one's done.
Right.
So they just thought, all right, it's got to be nominated, but kind of like Boyhood. That's kind of how I feel Boyhood is. It's nominated just because it took them 12 years to shoot the thing.
Right, like Patrick said, kind of a gimmick.
Yeah.
If the story has to stand on its own without the gimmick, it's not Oscar worthy, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. But also because it's nominated right beside American Sniper, it's fair because.
Well, true. I mean, it
if
does.
You're comparing the two. It's a good way to do it.
Yeah, but it was like, okay, let's get on with it, please. Again, we had already seen American Sniper. It was in the wee hours of the morning, and like, okay, and in fact, you
felt
those off before it was over. But
there was one more category I wanted to get to. I didn't know if y'all were going to talk about any of the visual movies.
Yeah.
It's Captain America, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Guardians of the Galaxy, Interstellar, and X-Men Days of Future Past. My big thing about all these movies is Captain America is probably not the most entertaining, and it's not the one that has the most special effects in it. But there is a scene where one of their flying aircraft carriers crashes into a building. And you see it from a distance, you see it close up, you see it on TV, you see it at every different angle, and I'm telling you, that is the most realistic thing I have ever seen on a movie screen before.
Do you think a single scene can make a movie win special effects? Or?
I don't know. I have no idea. Well, I mean, and going on with that, I think that Guardians of the Galaxy, to me, top to bottom, was so much special effects. I don't see how anything could beat it because it was all special effects.
Yeah.
But then X-Men Days of Future Past had one of the coolest scenes visually I've ever seen ever in a movie, and that's when Quicksilver is doing his run through this room of policemen that are shooting at them. And whenever you see movies that have things like The Flash, you always see these guys running real fast, and there's a streak running around people that are at normal speed. But this was the first movie that I've ever seen switch it, where we're watching him at normal speed, so everybody else is moving very, very slow. And he runs through this room, and he's like tasting the soup as he runs by it, and all these, and moving bullets so their trajectories are changed, and making people punch themselves and things. It's a fun scene, and it looks so real. It's just amazing to me special effects have come so far, so fast.
You thinking about the Star Wars movie coming
out? Oh my gosh. I'm a big old nerd. If it's nerd, I'm gonna like it, okay? And Star Wars and Star Trek and all those things, that's just as the same to me. The fact that they gave J.J. Abrams the keys to revamp Star Wars makes me know that it is going to be a fan favorite type movie to watch. J.J. Abrams grew up a nerd, and he likes this kind of movie. He's not much age difference from me. He grew up watching the same kind of movies. His dad worked with John Carpenter on Escape from New York when he was a kid. He's been involved in that kind of stuff for a long time, from a little kid age up, watching movies be made, and he's a fan of movies, and I love that, because what he did to revitalize Star Trek has been amazing to me. So watching what he's going to do to the Star Wars universe, I can't wait to see him get his hands on it.
So another category I wanted to hit on was the music. Did you look at any of the music?
I would have to say Interstellar by Zimmer. That movie was not the best movie in the universe, but Hans Zimmer's score for Interstellar was amazing. In fact, it was so amazing that there were times when it detracted from the movie. So I don't know if you call that a good score or not. It was really good music. The complaint of that movie by a lot of people was that the music was so loud they couldn't hear the dialogue. I noticed that in the theater. We were having trouble hearing it, too, in the theater. But the music was so good, I didn't care about some of the dialogue.
Guess in seeing the movie and hearing it was different, because I actually listened to all of these scores, and I was disappointed by Hans Zimmer on that one.
Well, that's also one of those things that it probably does fall in that category if it's really good for the movie.
Exactly. Like if I'm watching emotional part and the music is emotional, it fits. But I didn't like it. It just wasn't the bottom for me. But I only listened to it. I didn't watch it with the movie.
Well, and that I have found that recently. When I was in high school, I found that out the hard way. I bought Jurassic Park soundtrack. I love John Williams. I've always loved John Williams. I grew up on Star Wars and that kind of music. And then I bought that, and the opening theme is so awesome. The arrival at the island is so awesome. And then when the T-Rex attacks and things like that on the score, when you get further down the tracks, it's just like, okay, well, this is totally movie music and has nothing to do with, there's no need to be listening to that driving down the street kind of music. Now, Hans Zimmer, I've noticed with some of his Batman stuff that it is all about the moment. It's all about the epicness of Batman is back and he's standing on top of that building and we're having these big, huge power chords come out. And honestly, I mean, there's like 3 notes being played. And I'm like, okay, well, that was really cool, but it's epic, man. It's 3 notes of epicness.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I felt during Interstellar, but like I said, it's I guess you had to see the movie, too, I rated it pretty low. I think it's just also between American Sniper and Selma, with American Sniper being a pretty heavy hitter. So.
Well, I wouldn't doubt it. It's got a lot of good things going for it. It's powerful. It speaks. I'm assuming Selma does too. I was kind of looking forward to seeing it too. It'll be on my list right after SpongeBob.
Can't think of anything else, and that about wraps it up.
That's about all I've got on the Oscar stuff.
Again, Patrick Neff of realmanreviews.weebly.com and creepercast.com on iTunes. Again, thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the Boomer and X Show.
Well, I appreciate it very much. I'm honored and I'm very grateful that y'all had me on.
We're going to talk about movies plenty, so be looking for us to call you up plenty of other times also.
Hey, anytime you want. I love it. I love doing this.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, take it easy.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks again, Patrick. That was a great movie chat, and I think we might very well have him on from time to time.
Definitely.
When we want to talk about movies. I enjoyed that. Evan, we're going to take a quick break right now, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what many consider to be the top sports moment of the 20th century, if not of all time. It happened 35 years ago this coming Sunday, the February 22nd. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about it. It's one of the most, as far as I'm concerned, it is my favorite sports moment ever, and I'm excited to chat about it when we come back.
So stay tuned.
moments are born from great opportunity. And that's what you have here tonight, boys. That's what you've earned here tonight. One game. If we played them 10 times, they might win 9. But not this game. Not tonight. Tonight, we skate with them. Tonight, we stay with them. And we shut them down because we can. Tonight, we are the greatest hockey team in the world. You were born to be hockey players. Every one of you. And you were meant to be here tonight. This is your time. Their time is done. It's over. I'm sick and tired of hearing about what a great hockey team the Soviets have. Screw them. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
Okay, that clip is from the movie Miracle, the 2004 Disney Pictures movie about the 1980 U.S. hockey team and their defeat of the Soviet Union hockey team.
That was a great movie.
It was a great movie. It's my favorite sports movie of all time.
And it's, like you said, one of the greatest sports moments in history.
It is. And as we wrap this up, I'll just kind of cite some polls or some surveys or whatever. But yeah, again, 35 years ago on Sunday, which is February the 22nd, and I know it's kind of hard to think what's so big about a game, a hockey game, especially in this part of the country. Hockey's not a big deal by any stretch of the imagination, but I was alive. I remember it pretty well. Let me just go ahead and lay a little context for what was going on. First of all, 2 or 3 months before the game started, there was in Tehran, Iran, there was the embassy overrun. And Americans were 50 or so, were taken hostage by some Iranians because they were very upset by some things that we did, or they think we did, or whatever. Anyway, we had 50 American lives hanging in the balance, and that started on November 4th. That was to go on for well over a year.
Into the Olympics, right?
Even way beyond the Olympics. The Olympics happened in February of 1980. Those hostages were not released until Inauguration Day of 1981. They were actually held for 444 days. So anyway, that was a cloud that was hanging over everything at the time. Inflation was a bad issue in the late 70s in the United States. In December of 79, you had the Soviet Union invading Afghanistan. And Soviet-American relations were certainly very, very cold. You had Jimmy Carter even say that he was going to withhold American athletes from the Summer Games, the Summer Olympics, to be held in Moscow if the Russians didn't get out. Well, they didn't get out in Afghanistan, and so we did indeed boycott the Summer Games. We didn't go. About 60 or 65 other countries joined us. They didn't go, but that was the Summer Games. The Russians, though, came to America. The games were in America, in Lake Placid, New York, and they came. They were going to show, hey, we don't care. We'll take all comers, and politics be damned. We're going to highlight and our athletes,
their dominance,
and our hockey team. And yeah, their dominance.
And that was a big thing coming here on our soil.
Yeah,
and being
we'll see, and that's just it. Their hockey team was more than a hockey team.
Yep.
It was a source of national pride for them. It was a source of Soviet propaganda. This team was, even though they played amateur in the amateur ranks of the Olympics, they were a professional team. All they did was play hockey. They trained and played hockey all the time. They traveled the world. They came over here some months before the games, and they embarrassed an NHL All-Star team. They were as powerful and dominant as any team has ever been in any sport. Mm-hmm. They really were. And some of the guys on that team had been playing together for as long as 15 years. I mean, just can't.
When you think about it, the players on that USA team that were put together.
A bunch of college kids. The average age was 21. They had been assembled 6 months earlier, handpicked by Coach Herb Brooks.
Yeah.
And they went through their training regimen. But the movie does a great job, and all of the reading that I've shown all the reading that I've done showed that he was huge on conditioning.
Yes, that's what paid off for them big time, and the movie really hit on it too. You know, I remember it showed two players talking to each other like, "Man, we haven't even played. This isn't hockey. We're just doing sprints." You know,
right.
Over and over and over and over.
It was all it was all conditioning for them. But he also, I mean, he was very innovative. His strategies of a hybrid style of play.
A lot of psychological testing.
And he even used psychological testing to find out, what his players were made of.
Yeah.
So this guy, he didn't miss a lick. He was definitely ahead of his time, very genius. I think, however, that the single most effective and genius move that he made was he scheduled an exhibition,
little scrimmage,
to be played against this Soviet team in Madison Square Garden, New York, just a few days before the Olympics started. And Team USA probably went out and got thrashed 10-3. And you know enough about hockey to know if you give up 10 goals...
10 goals, man. And what's crazy is the goalie actually ends up saving the day for the silver medal, right? I mean, for the...
Well,
they met up in the
medal, right, in the medal round.
Because
they took a lot of shots on goal. Yeah, they did. But here's what I love about that 10-3 loss, if he had not played that, guess what? In the Olympics,
it would have happened.
That's where it would have happened.
You're right. That was genius.
It was because he knew his kids, again, his college kids that had only been playing together as a team for 6 months. They were going to go out there. They were going to be in awe.
Shell shocked.
They were going to be shell shocked. They were going to crap their pants. And lose. And so what does he do? He gives them a chance to do that before they play in the Olympics.
And the Soviets, I guess, they are so confident that they think we'll beat you then and
exactly. I mean, just an absolutely genius move. And you know what was so tragic? Herb Brooks was killed in a car wreck just as this movie was finished being filmed. He never saw it,
man.
But he definitely, obviously he lived it, but he just did a phenomenal job. But now now the Olympics, and you play a lot of hockey games before you even get to the medal round.
Yeah.
So the Soviets they were 5-0 in the first rounds, and in those 5 games they scored 51 goals.
Wow.
Team USA had 4 wins and a tie.
Yeah.
And they came from behind in every game.
Yep.
To win or tie. But
so you were of course alive for all this.
I was 18.
Can you? I mean, I know you're not a big hockey fan, but what was going on?
I was beyond captivated. I mean, I was thrilled. The game against the Russians, the Soviets. The game against the Soviets took place on Friday afternoon, but ABC did not air it live. They held on to it and aired it in prime time for more viewers.
Friday or Saturday?
Friday.
Okay.
Friday night, prime time, Friday evening. And here's the deal. There was no internet. There was no texting.
So it was live for you.
So for a lot of people, most people thought they were seeing it live. Now, Canadian TV actually showed it in real time. It showed
that
it
makes
live.
sense, yeah.
But it was held on for about 3.5 hours and aired in prime time on Friday night. But that wasn't the gold medal game.
Exactly.
They won their way into the gold medal game, which was then Sunday morning against Finland. And I remember being at church just thinking, let's go, let's wrap this up.
You were that excited for a hockey
game, yeah. And so went home and was able to catch part of it, but. As in the game against the Soviet Union, team captain Mikey Ruzioni scored a goal that put Team USA up 4-3 with 10 minutes left. And between Jim Craig, the goalie, and the rest of the team playing defense, they made that goal stand for the 10 minutes. And I remember in the movie, they had Al Michaels who announced it live, and on that, as he's counting down the last 10, the last 5 seconds, and then he says, "Do you believe in miracles?" They didn't redo that. They took his audio from his original broadcast and said, "There's no way that the emotion can be replicated, so we're just going to play that." And he shouts out, "Do you believe in miracles?" "Yes, yes," and the place goes, crazy. But those guys. And Herb Brooks, thank you. It was such a huge thing to me. And as I started doing some research because I knew I wanted to talk about this, I looked some things up. In 1999, Sports Illustrated named Miracle on Ice the top sports moment of the 20th century. In 2008, the International Hockey Federation, in conjunction with their 100th anniversary, named this the biggest international hockey story in their 100-year history. I did a best sports moment of all time search, a most inspiring Olympic moment of all time search, and the biggest upset in sports. And this was at the top of every list. So I believe that I'm safe in saying the consensus is that this is the biggest moment in sports history. And as someone who is a diehard football fan, I will tell you that this moment with me is the one that I enjoy watching again, watching the movie of. Anyway, 35 years ago Sunday, and if you get a chance to see a movie, or if you're a coach and you have some kids or teenagers and maybe they're facing, some kind of
not getting along or something.
Some kind of David versus Goliath, and your kids are the David. Show them this movie. Show them this movie.
Yeah, it's even non-sports. It's just a great life story.
It really is.
American story that's, I don't know, it's awesome.
It really is. And one of the things that Coach Brooks did, he went his own way. He was catching some flack from people that wanted to do things the same way, and yet the same way wasn't successful. So he went his own path, and I believe it is the only path that could have gotten him there. And again, that game a few days before the Olympics, where he had to know his kids were going to go out there and get and just get annihilated. But get that one out of your way now, and we'll play them more eye to eye, man to man, when it really counts.
But that movie, man, watch the movie. Because if you weren't alive for it and can't recall it like John did, you go watch that movie. It's amazing. And
if I think more of our listeners are probably a little younger than I am, probably closer to your age, because for one thing, I don't know that a lot of 50-something-year-olds listen to podcasts. But if you were alive when this happened and have recollection of, drop us a line. I'd love to hear from you. I really would.
And we want to hear those personal
recollections,
retellings, whatever.
Yeah. Let us know. So I think that'll wrap it up for us today, right?
Oh, yeah. If you want to, of course, like John said, write us in and give us your... even if you've seen the movie and you want to talk about the movie, we'd love to hear that. Go on our Facebook anytime and give us a like and give us some comments. And go on iTunes and give us some reviews. And we're always looking for advice, topic ideas, whatever.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you next time. Have a great week.